This model did not exist in 2021, but here we are anyways, documenting one. Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Let's just say tonight's episode is brought to you by dumb luck. I just happened to be on Reverb instantly when this was listed, made an offer, seller said, yep, let's get this to Trogly. So, we were kind of just talking about this in a recent Wyron episode. This is an employee's 20th anniversary guitar. It is a Les Paul Supreme. However, it was made outside of the normal Les Paul Supreme era. I mean, remember, we're not talking about the modern day Supremes. We're talking about the ones that still have the carved maple back to them, that are chambered out. They wire all the electronics through an enlarged output jack plate. That's how you can get away with not having F-holes or any type of back plate. But check out this one. It's got this insanely figured one-piece neck. You don't find that from Gibson every day. But as beautiful and crazy as this is, you have to remember this is a Gibson-USA product, not custom shop, despite the badge on our case. But let's catch you up a little bit on Supreme history so you can understand why this thing is so special. The Les Paul Supreme was first introduced at Summer NAMM in 2003. And in fact, Floyd Leonard, that's right, the Leonard family that we talk about all the time with 80s Gibsons, actually had a hand in designing this, and he was gifted the very first Supreme, which you're seeing here on the screen. And those were popular enough, they ended up being produced in a few different finishes. They are the highest end Gibson USA product that they made. They were just as expensive as a custom shop, but they were just something completely different with that carved back that was figured. The chambering just made them very unique. And of course, you can't forget about their Super 400 inlays with the ebony fretboard and the gold fret wire and their unique globe headstock. And there's a few different versions of Supremes, like they started to toy around with them in the 2010s era. There's one that just says Supreme on the headstock, and then there's F-hold versions. There's some with Florentine sharp cutaways. However, the last regular body Supreme was produced for 2019. It was known as the 125th anniversary model. Now, we've documented a few of those, but generally speaking, 2003 to 2019, that is all Henry J era stuff. When we swapped over into new ownership, the original Supremes were discontinued. And in fact, that original 125th anniversary run, even though they were initially going to make 125 of them, it was later found out only 31 of them ended up existing, apparently due to just not having enough quality woods for them. The final serial number was actually gifted to George Matthews Sr. as his 40th year working at Gibson anniversary. He was part of the research and development team, which brings us back to this guitar quite nicely. So, our serial number, 130th day of 2021, so outside of the regular production of the carved back Supreme, but we were talking about employee anniversaries. This one is a confirmed 20th anniversary gift for an old Gibson employee. However, as with many employee guitars, they end up selling them because it's basically like a $5,000 to $10,000 bonus for them. And the reason why we have a 125th anniversary case on here is, I mean, they plan to make 125. I'm sure they nearly had a spare 100 cases or so of these, so it makes sense to kind of use them up with employee guitars. Now, does that mean this is the only Supreme that was made outside of the run? No, we've actually seen quite a few of these. Most employee anniversary guitars end up being Supremes because it's the most expensive model that they're allowed to choose from. It makes sense because they have to choose an existing model and then they can select all the other woods and pickups. But it's been fun seeing all the different ones show up. So far, I've personally seen at least 4 original bodied Supremes after the 2019 lineup. There's 2 different Bluebursts and just a straight up honey colored one. That honey one is extra cool because it has a figured mahogany neck as well as a figured mahogany body. So when you look at the edges, it's just insanely grained. And I believe when those first popped up, we had hypothesized that those were runoff bodies of the 2019 125th anniversary Supremes. However, in that recent internet hunt video, we talked about the 9-ply neck version. That thing was super cool. And then, hey, what luck. This one just happens to show up on Reverb, and I'm there in time to grab it to document. What I really like about this one is it has a more of a honey burst color to it. It has that slightly darker edge. And then it also has chrome hardware, which is just unique. I think I'd personally prefer gold because they went for the standard golden fret wire on it, but chrome everything else. But hey, that is all up to the employee. It's their guitar that they're making. Sadly, no figured mahogany over here, but it's also important to note that original Supremes are quite chunky boys. There's a reason why they chambered them out, because it's a much thicker guitar than usual. Which, you know, love or hate them, a Supreme is a unique beast. From your multiply binding up here to your more semi-hollow electric Spanish guitar vibes of being 3-ply back here, they're quite fascinating. This one actually has a Supreme truss rod cover on it, but doesn't say Supreme within the globe inlay. But that's the other cool thing. If you notice those other ones we were talking about, most of them had a custom headstock as well as trapezoid inlays. This one actually still looks very Supreme-like, all things considered. Now, as far as what employee this one was designed for, I don't know at this point in time. I think this guitar has changed hands at least 2 or 3 times. But we do have some minimal documentation if we come over here to the case. Inside our compartment, we have a printed email of a previous owner who reached out to Gibson about it when they tell them about the 20th anniversary thing. And that is true. If the guitar's not in Gibson's database, all that means is it did not originally ship to a dealer. So a 20th anniversary guitar would not show up in their logs. And based on what I'm feeling, I don't anticipate this being an after-hours fake. I will admit, though, that there are some strange areas in the lacquer by the binding, and the Gibson logo does look a little bit goofy. It's almost like maybe they saved this faceplate for many a years, knowing that, hey, when I hit my 20th, I want to make sure I use that. Otherwise, looks like all the good stuff was harvested. All we got left is a Gibson polished cloth, the Gibson strap, and our owner's manual. No multi-tools or anything like that, but hey, there was a Gibson-USA pick in there. So if any Gibson employee wants to claim this one as their gift, feel free to reach out. Maybe we could do a little interview. Otherwise, let's go ahead and throw this onto the workbench to take an individual look at its parts and specs and see what else we can figure out about it. Well, that was easy. Just lift up the bridge pickup cavity and we've got our answer. This was crafted for John Edwards. Now, whether or not he still works there or wants to talk about it, I guess we'll find out. But I guess that's his official shout out here. But as far as our neck pickup cavity, it just says HB for Honeyburst, most likely. I also noticed deep within our cavity there is a 1X written. Looks like we're going to have to break out the endoscope early this time. Is there anything else hidden under there? I wonder what that was put there for. It makes me think like maybe it's a one-piece back, but that's not true. But we can see the backside of our toggle switch right here, as well as the edge of our mahogany body that was chambered out. And then they throw that maple on the back to hide all that. But that then continues. Okay, so there's like a center portion right here to help glue that top to. So we can go one of 2 different ways. Here's our first option where we can see some more mild writing on it. But just check out that flame figuring. That's pretty sweet. And hey, wait a minute. What is that down there? Is that just trash in our guitar? I think so. That looks like some painter's tape. Maybe a note? Is it a secret? I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that out. It's looking like sign-off tags. Here we go. I equipped my endoscope with a sticky piece of tape. Let's see if we can get this. Okay, I think it's coming. Slow and steady. All right, I think I can get it with my fingers now. What on earth? Does anybody at Gibson recognize this? It looks like something that would have traveled the shop with the guitar. There's not much on it. It's labeled QC product tag over here, but no dates or anything filled out. But it does look like it was indeed marked 20 years, so we know it's not a 40-year one. And there we go. We can see that name again. John Edwards, 20 year. And nice, we do have a date, 5/10/2021. I don't think that was supposed to be in there. Nor was this rubber band, but that is now case candy. And that's why I love the endoscope test. It's not always just about seeing how the guitar is constructed. You never know what you'll find, especially inside chambered guitars. But okay, looking over here, this appears to have 2 different chambers. But now let's come back and follow our other cavity, see if we find anything else. Just more light writing over here. We've Got a whole bunch of wires coming through here. And then here we can see the pots. Just looks like your regular Gibson branded ones. Nothing too crazy in that aspect. Just a little blue capacitors. And then entering from the output jack location, we can get a slightly closer look at them. Well, while trying to fish around and find what I wanted to find, we got some other mild markings over here. Hey, hold the phone. Does that say SU-125? Like marked for the 125th Anniversary Supreme? That's another sweet discovery. And yeah, sure enough, there we go. I was trying to see and visualize on this side if it was indeed kind of a center block. It just gets carved out a lot. Well, that was fun. That means they know throughout production that it's an employee's guitar, so they should take some time on it. As far as the pickups and employee guitars, they get to choose that. He went with the 57 Classic set, which I think is underutilized today, so that's a great choice. I do find it kind of funny just how long these wires are on these pickups, though, including on the bridge pickup. But otherwise, we can see the short neck tenon construction, where the maple top joins onto our mahogany body. Our pickups within the circuit read 7.97k ohms, neck position 792, and they play together nicely at just a little under 4. Now, being an employee guitar, I was kind of curious if this would be the first Supreme to have a push-pull pot of the original style, but no, he just went for standard electronics. That's pretty easy to double verify with your only 2-conductor wiring of the pickups. But now, bridge and tailpiece time. It's your standard Gibson-USA stuff, crafted by API Advanced Plating Incorporated. However, this is a full-weight tailpiece, but yet it still has the modern hex key adjustments with a lightweight aluminum tailpiece. But now let's talk about the top. When I first unboxed this, I was like, man, I was really expecting the wood to move more. All it needed was a good polishing. There was just a layer of dust and dirt. Like, it wasn't a super heavily dirty guitar, but somebody has definitely enjoyed playing this. But I was able to use my Virtuoso polish to get that looking good again. This top looks especially good from this angle, and there was never a pickguard installed on this one at all. And as far as the condition on the front, I noticed some mildly deeper scratches than just a polishing swirl, and like this area. It's not a big deal at all, just thought I'd make mention of it. I didn't see any major dings across the top, but we'll have to talk a little bit more when we get to the back. The other thing that I noticed that was kind of unique is, look, no poker chip. However, usually they just secure it to the guitar, but this one actually has a flat washer underneath it. I wonder if John was like, hey, I would prefer it if we did it like this. It leaves a little bit more of a profile to it. At first I thought we were using an Epiphone product until I took a closer look at it. It looks like there's a couple of scratches to our pickup covers. Nothing too crazy. But moving on from our chambered mahogany body with 2-piece maple top, 2-piece maple back, we've got that 1-piece maple neck with our ebony fretboard. Now when it comes to gold and fret wire, if you highly polish it, the gold almost kind of disappears, is what it looks like. It's just become so shiny. So usually I'll just opt to leave the gold fret wire alone. I just mildly clean it. That way we still get the cool effect. But that was a fun throwback to the original Supremes. It's a nice dark ebony board. It's got a lot of wood grain when you get the bright lights on it too. But that is true mother of pearl on our Super 400 inlays working up and down the neck here. But how did he spec it? 1.72 inches for our nut, about 211 at the 12, 0.84 first fret neck depth, and about 0.98 by the 12th. It's a nice rounded C neck profile shape is how I would describe it. Here's a look at that neck profile at the 1st fret and the 12th fret. Just super rounded and C-shaped. Now moving on to our weird looking headstock. I took 2 of the tuners off because there was some built up gunk and grease or something around them that I needed to clean off. But now the pearl shines in the light, especially on our globe inlay. That just needed a little bit of polishing. The dust was making that not happen. But the original Supreme globe's kind of cool because it's got brass parts to create the continents, and then the oceans is abalone, and then our banner that's around it that normally says Supreme, that's blank on this one, is made of mother of pearl. So a whole bunch of cool combinations of fancy things. It's a shame that maple got covered over in a trans black paint, but at least we can see it on the back, but our truss rod looks good. And here's another look at our silver metal Supreme truss rod cover. Off the top of my head, I don't remember which run utilized those, if there even is one, but it is cool. Here's a closer look at those weird lacquer areas. So I have seen this occur on other ones. Basically what's happening is this area is a little bit higher than the binding, and it creates this ridge for the clear coat, and sometimes that can bubble and or chip. depending on the movement of the fiberboard peg head veneer as well as the plastic binding. I doubt that was there from the factory. It's just, something that occurs over time, similar to the outline around the Gibson logo that is well known for occurring. You can see some more of that phenomenon over here. And if you feel it with your nail, there's definitely a difference between those surfaces. Hey, Trogly from the future here. While I was outside filming B-roll, I noticed, there's actually a small gap between our binding. What first caught my attention was the finish checking along that area before that, but in this case that's the true cause of this really ugly area. The binding is just slightly lifted and that pulled up the finish. But that should be pretty easy to glue back down. And you know what? Now that I look on the other side, there is also a small gap. Well, now moving on to the backside. I've got to say, I think this is my favorite part of the entire guitar. It's just that perfect burst with the great flame figuring. This is my favorite kind of flame. When it's not pinstripey, it's a little bit wide, and it's ultra moving. And Honeyburst is one of those colors that I really like. I'm not as a big fan of the really strong cherry sunbursts. So again, really glad I was able to get this one because I missed that last flame neck mahogany one. But here's a closer look at that 3-ply binding, like what you'd find on an ES345 and some select other arch tops. Now I know it looks beautiful and nice and polished up. However, there are a few pin-sized dings on this. This one kind of looks like a contamination in the finish to me. So whether or not that's true or it's a ding, I don't know. But we do have a couple of scuffs down here. We've got a couple of pin-sized dings over here as well. I'm just being nitpicky for future-proofing. At this time, I don't plan on selling this guitar. I know there was like another one in this general area, but again, once you polish it, the flame just really comes out and you can't notice anything else. But check out our edge. We do indeed have thin binding in the cutaway over here. It's kind of a shame they didn't thin binding cutaway the other side too. And then there's a mark right here. I can't tell if that's a ding or a discoloration in the wood, but it doesn't feel like a ding. And it looks like we've got a mild case scuff mark over here. Otherwise, just some decent mahogany wood grain, nothing too crazy. Some similar minor scuffing along this edge too, with more grain. And if you're curious about the size of the route underneath the jack plate, it's not huge by any means, just enough to get the stuff in there so they don't have to do the back plates. I was honestly expecting it to be much wider based on how large that is. But moving on from our back, now we can appreciate our neck. Typically when Gibson does figured maple necks, they don't opt for a one-piece. But this one, they decided to do one-pieces rather than their 5-ply lamination. Kind of special. Similar to a The Les Paul, I guess you could say. Another thing to know about this having a maple neck is most Supremes, despite being fancy on the top and back, did not have this spec. Plain multi-pieced or not. So that's the other thing that really drew me to this one for my collection. But just like on the face of the headstock, you can see a line of lacquer right there. Similar delamination type thing. It's really present right here underneath the nut. Now that's not a crack. Again, that's probably just where the binding truly ends and the neck begins, and maybe this wasn't 100% properly humidified its entire life. Too bad he didn't have those guys put a volute on it. That would have been pretty cool. But you can see we do still utilize a figured maple wing to craft our Gibson headstock as per usual. And here we can confirm that those are the only tuners this guitar has ever seen. Looks like a Pingworks 1 crafted Grover. And here's a look at our serial number again. 2021, 130th day of the year, initial batch, production number 157. Made in USA. But all said and done, this employee guitar weighs 8 pounds, 10.3 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how these 57 classics sound. like this one. It's really resonant, even unplugged. You feel that neck vibrating, which is not always the case with a maple neck, so that was a pleasant surprise. And the whole body, I don't know if it's how they chamber it. In person, if you put your ear up to it, you can tell it's a lot louder than a usual solid body. And I've always been a big fan of 57 Classics. I noticed that bridge pickup, it's really high to the string, so if you pick by it, I would say it's too much, but touch sensitivity is very important on that. That tames it down perfectly. And very chimey in that middle position. Well, there we go. Wasn't that just a fun little adventure? Documenting an employee's 20th anniversary Les Paul Supreme. I like it. I think it sounds good. It's one of those instruments where I want to play it more and more because it's got a really nice open and slightly throaty tone. Not quite woody, but those are all just made-up terms. What do they actually even mean? All I'm saying is it's got a nice vintage classic rock sound to it. I just want to keep playing and discovering what else might come out of this. The finish inspires me to play lighter, slightly happier things, though, especially with the chrome hardware versus gold. But I think what baffles my mind is Gibson-USA is able to produce something like this. I mean, this is 2021, the modern era. Can you imagine this being in stock at a Gibson store? I'm sure it'd probably be like $6,000 brand new, and at that point people would just complain and go, hey, why is it not custom shop? I guess now that I think about it, the one-piece maple neck, it might be more like $8,000, but it would be insane if Gibson-USA did offer the original Supreme body shape. And I bet one day we might see it return, but at the time of recording in 2025, this is a dead model as far as the carved back and how it's constructed. So I hope you guys enjoyed taking a look at this special one from 2021 outside of the regular production era. And we will catch you guys tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you like tonight's episode about employee special guitars, you might enjoy the one about the unofficial Trent Reznor model that was discontinued and given away to the employees. You can click that one here.